delicious chili dog pizza.
Let's see what's cooking. Let's get the facts. Let's see what's cooking. It's time for Yo-Yo Max 12.
Hello everyone. Starting off with a pizza crust. Now you can buy your own already made pizza crust. You could buy frozen pizza dough. You can do whatever you'd like. I'm making my own from scratch because it's just really easy to do. I started off with a cup of very warm water, a teaspoon of sugar. I added about a teaspoon and a half of instant active dry yeast. And then I just kind of whisked it together. Now, the crust I used for this particular pizza was probably a little bit too thick. If you like a thinner crust pizza, then only use about 3/4 of a cup of water for the size that I ended up with. When I use a cup of water like that, usually it's enough to make 3 small pizzas with fairly thin crust. So I started adding some flour to the water, whisking it in at the beginning. And then I switched to a wooden spoon as I continue to add more. And I basically add enough flour until the dough starts to pull away from the sides of the bowl. So I don't have exact measurements of flour because I always do it just like this by feel, by adding a little bit at a time. So when the dough pulls away from the sides of the bowl, then it's ready to turn out onto the countertop. You can do this all with a stand mixer with a dough hook attachment. You don't have to do it with your actual hands if you don't want to. So I put a generous sprinkling of flour on the counter. And then I knead the dough ball on the flour on the counter, adding little bits of flour until you get a dough that's still a little bit sticky, but it generally is fairly elastic and holds together. There's my dough, fairly smooth, a little bit sticky. Put it in a bowl, the same bowl I used to mix with a little bit of flour on the bottom. Then I cover it with plastic wrap and then I put it somewhere warm to rise. What I do is I heat my oven on warm until it beeps to say that it's at warm temperature, and then I shut the oven off, and then I put my dough in there, let it rise. You want to rise until double. It's going to take about 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so until it's done. There's my dough. It's risen to about double, maybe a little less than double. It doesn't take very long if you put it in a warm oven. If you don't have a lot of time, even if it just allow it to rise for even 30 minutes, that's going to be fine. That's going to be plenty. Now you're going to spread your dough into a pan. You don't have to use a pizza pan for this. I'm using this baking dish that I have, and the reason it's covered with aluminum foil is because it's really ugly, and if it wasn't making a video, I probably wouldn't have covered it with foil. Well, however, foil does make cleanup a lot easier. I also sprayed that foil with a little bit of cooking spray. And then you're going to spread your dough out. You can see it's still a little bit on the sticky side, but that's okay. It makes it really tender. I just put a little bit of butter on my fingers and I ended up spreading it out all the way to the edge. It was kind of like at this point where I realized, hey, you know what? You have way too much pizza dough for the size of pan that you're using. This is like a cookie sheet with an edge to it. It's about 10 by 14. I should have used a bigger one, or I should have taken some of that pizza dough and just put it in the freezer to be used for another recipe another time. But regardless, I just kind of made the best of it. I pushed it up, made a really nice high crust all the way around the edge. And some people like thick pizza crust, so it's going to be really up to you how you want to make this. Now, because the crust was so thick, I decided to blind bake it, and that means to partially bake it. So I put it in a 375-degree oven for about 10 minutes until the edges were just starting to get just a tiny bit brown. And then I took it out of the oven. And then I added about 1/3 of a cup of mustard. As you can see, I didn't measure it. I just kind of squirted some on there, about 1/3 of a cup. And then I spread it all around with a pastry brush. You could use more or less mustard or none at all if you absolutely hate it. That is up to you. I do find that it adds a lot of flavor to the pizza. It's not overpowering, but it certainly is quite good. Now, a little confession for you here. Last year at about February of 2020, I kind of went a little pandemic crazy and I bought a lot of canned goods because I thought the world was coming to an end with the virus. So I bought a lot of canned chili and canned vegetables and things like that. So this is one of my pandemic cans of chili here. It's just plain old canned chili with beans. And I just spooned it on top of the crust and just spread it around. And then I sprinkled about a cup of cheese on top. That is a combination of cheddar and mozzarella. However, you could use whatever kind of cheese you want. I put about a cup or so first on top of the chili. Now, this is a chili dog pizza, of course, so we're going to add some chopped up hot dogs on top of this pizza. I used about 5 hot dogs chopped into fairly small pieces. And then I sprinkled on an additional half a cup or so of the cheese mixture on top, just to get a little bit on top of the hot dogs. Then you're going to put this in the oven and bake it at 375 for about half hour or so until it's nicely golden brown on the edges. And once it's baked and out of the oven, I sprinkled on about 3 chopped up green onions, little spring onions, 3 of them. And of course, you could add onions to this pizza before you bake it. I just like the fresh green one sprinkled on after it's done. But that's completely up to you. And of course, it's your pizza. Put whatever toppings you want. This chili dog pizza is delicious. And you can see that if you use a ready-made store-bought pizza crust, you could have dinner on the table with something that's delicious in no time at all. Thanks for watching. I have a couple different pizza recipes on my channel. Check them out in this playlist by clicking on your screen or looking for the link in the description box below. Thanks for watching.